A growing realization has reportedly permeated Western capitals. The strategy employed thus far in the conflict has not yielded the desired outcome, leading to an increasing acceptance that the West has lost in its current approach. This profound reassessment signifies a critical turning point, indicating that the initial assumption about the conflict's trajectory and the effectiveness of Western intervention may have been fundamentally flawed. This acknowledgement of a loss is not necessarily a military defeat in a conventional sense, but rather a recognition that the strategic objectives, such as the complete restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity under its pre-conflict borders, the weakening of Russia to a point of irreversible geopolitical decline, or the full integration of Ukraine into Western security structure, are increasingly unattainable through the current course of action. This introspection suggests a significant shift in diplomatic and strategic thinking, prompting a search for alternative pathways and a redefinition of achievable goals in the evolving geopolitical landscape. The notion of the West losing reflects several converging factors. Firstly, the sustained military resilience of Russia, coupled with its ability to adapt to sanctions and maintain its offensive capabilities, has defied many Western predictions. Secondly, the immense economic and social costs borne by European nations due to energy crisis, inflations, and refugees flows have generated internal pressure to find a more sustainable path. Thirdly, the ongoing fragmentation and destruction within Ukraine, despite significant Western aid, underscore the limits of external intervention in a protracted, high-intensity conflict. This confluence of factors has led to a sobering reevaluation of the efficacy of current policies, paving the way for a more pragmatic and perhaps less ideologically driven approach to the conflict. The realization also extends to the understanding that a prolonged conflict without a clear path to victory carries the risk of further destabilizing global security and economic system, making a strategic pivot increasingly necessary. Amidst this reevaluation, former President Donald Trump is reportedly attempting to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. This initiative signals a potential shift toward a more direct and perhaps unconventional diplomatic strategy, bypassing traditional channels in an effort to broker a new global understanding. Trump's perceived willingness to engage directly with President Xi rather than through established diplomatic frameworks highlights a desire to leverage personal relationships and a unique approach to international relations. The timing of such a meeting, against the backdrop of a Western reassessment of the Ukrainian conflict, suggests an ambition to forge a grander bargain that could involve significant concessions or realignments on multiple fronts, including trade, security, and regional influence. A meeting between these two leaders could aim to explore avenues for de-escalation in Ukraine, potentially by seeking China's influence on Russia, or to establish a broader framework for global stability that recognizes the evolving power dynamics between the major world powers. The significance of a potential Trump-Xi meeting extends beyond the immediate conflicts in Ukraine. It touches upon a long-standing strategic vision, described by some as the club, which has allegedly been preparing for this win for 24 years. This reference to the club and a 24 years preparation period suggests a deep-seated, long-term geopolitical strategy, predating the current conflict designed to reshape the global order. The term win, in this context, implies a successful culmination of these long-term efforts, leading to a new distribution of power and influence that benefits the architect of this strategy. While speculative, this interpretation suggests that the current conflicts and the West's perceived loss are not isolated events, but rather integral parts of a meticulously planned geopolitical chess game. The club could refer to a network of influential figures, political strategists, and economic actors who have been working toward a particular vision of the future, perhaps one that challenges the unipolar dominance of the United States or promotes a more multipolar world. The long-term strategy alluded to by the club could encompass a variety of objectives, including the erosion of traditional alliance, the re-establishment of sphere of influence, and the reshaping of global economic system. If the West is indeed realizing it has lost in its current approach, this could be seen as validation for the club's strategy, indicating that their long-term predictions and preparations are now bearing fruits. The win could therefore represent a shift in global power dynamics, where certain nations or bloc gains increased leverage and influence at the expense of others. This strategic preparation over 24 years point to a patient and methodical approach, leveraging various geopolitical events and economic shift to gradually advance a predetermined agenda. Such a narrative suggests that the current state of global affairs is not merely a series of unpredictable crises, but rather the unfolding of a carefully orchestrated plan by powerful, long-sighted actors. A meeting between Trump and Xi, if it occurs, would be a pivotal moment in this unfolding narrative. Trump's known affinity for bilateral deals and his skepticism toward multilateral institutions could align with a strategy to dismantle existing international frameworks and establish new ones based on direct agreement between powerful states. Xi Jinping's leading a rising global power would also have his own objective in such a high-level engagement, likely aimed at solidifying China's global standing, expanding its economic influence, and advancing its geopolitical interests. The outcome of such a discussion could have profound implications for global trade, technological competition, and regional security arrangements across Asia and beyond. It could signal a move away from the post-Cold War liberal international order toward a more transactional and power-based systems of international relations, where the interests of major powers dictate the terms of global cooperation and competition. The internal dynamics within the West would also be significantly affected by such a diplomatic initiative. A Trump-Xi meeting, particularly if it's result in substantial shift in foreign policy, could further divide Western alliance, especially if it is perceived as undermining existing commitment or ceding ground to rival powers. European nations already grappling with their own reassessment of the conflict and their relationship with Russia would have to contend with a potentially divergent U.S. foreign policy. This could accelerate the trend towards greater European strategic autonomy, prompting them to forge their own path in a more multipolar world. The prospect of major powers independently negotiating global issues outside of established multilateral forums could lead to a less predictable and more fragmented international systems, where traditional alliances are tested and new alignments emerge. The implications for international organizations and global governance are also profound. If major powers bypass institutions like the United Nations, World Trade Organizations, or other regional bodies in favor of direct bilateral engagement, the authority and effectiveness of these organizations could be significantly diminished. This would represent a departure from the multilateralism that has guided international relations for decades, potentially leading to a more anarchic global environment where power politics plays an even more dominant role. The long-term consequences of such a shift could include a weakening of international law, a rise in unilateral actions, and an increase in global instability. The narrative of the club and a 24-year preparation suggests a deliberate effort to achieve such a systematic transformation, indicating that the current global upheaval is not merely a temporary crisis, but a fundamental restructuring of the world order. Ultimately, the unfolding events, the West's reassessment, Trump's diplomatic overture to Xi, and the underlying narrative of the club achieving a long-prepared win point towards a period of significant geopolitical transformation. The era of a unipolar world dominated by Western liberal democracies appears to be giving way to a more complex multipolar systems where power is distributed among several major players. The current conflict in Ukraine, far from being an isolated event, is increasingly viewed as a catalyst or a symptom of this larger transformation. The coming years will likely witness continued realignment, renewed diplomatic effort, and a reshaping of international norms and institutions as the world navigates this new and uncertain geopolitical landscape. The perceived loss by the West and the win by the club signify not an end, but a new beginning in the ongoing struggle for global influence and the future of international order. That's all for me for today. If you like the video presentation and you would like to follow for more, hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build a show for you. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. I will see you soon. Bye for now.